It is my last day driving the Southwest Coastal 300. Last night I arrived in the Scottish town of Dumfries, and today I am going to do a little bit of exploring before driving back to London later on this afternoon. But before I head into Dumfries, I thought I would give you a quick tour of my room at the Aberdour guest house in Dumfries. So you can see it's quite a spacious room. There are two beds, a single and a double, and that's because when I arrived last night I was told that the shower in the room that I booked, the single room, wasn't working. And so they had already decided to move me to this room right here, which has served me very well, I've got to say. There is a TV up there and free parking, by the way. So that's my black car just at the front of the hotel. Free Wi-Fi, free cooked breakfast this morning, church over there in the distance and a bowling green maybe. I've got to say it's been a good place to stay. It cost £36 a night to stay here, which I thought was a bargain. Well, the last day of my trip has definitely brought out the best weather. Blue skies, a little bit chilly, but a really, really nice morning. I'm walking through the high street, I'm in the centre of town, and behind me is the incredible Midsteeple building. It was built between 1705 and 1707. Originally it was built as an administrative centre for the town, but later on went on to become a prison, a guardhouse, a courthouse, and even an armoury. It has a 6-storey clock tower. I've climbed up these steps at the front, and the first plaque signifies that it is the Midsteeple of Dumfries. We've also got a plaque here that tells us how far we are from various places. London, 330 miles, that's where I'm heading later on this afternoon. We've got Carlisle, 33 miles, Edinburgh, 72, Glasgow, 74, and Portpatrick, 84, which is a place that I visited on this trip. This guy here is St Michael, the patron saint of Dumfries, and just above is the coat of arms of Scotland. Come down here, you can see the entrance to the building. It is incredible. It is made, just like a lot of these other buildings, of red sandstone. And as I look out now, this is the High Street area of Dumfries. Just strolling through a memorial garden that has been dedicated to the life and times of Scotland's national poet Robert Burns, who in the house opposite the road lived the last 3 years of his life between 1793 and 1796. Sadly, he passed away in that house at a very young age. In the memorial garden here there are paintings on the wall depicting characters from some of his songs and poems. There's also lyrics that have been placed all around the garden, and these beautiful flowers that brighten up an already very bright day. If you want to know a little bit more about Robert Burns himself, then you can take a look at one of my previous videos on this series, the one where I explored Alloway, the birthplace of Robert Burns, and I went into a little bit more detail in that video on his life and where he grew up. Just walked between those two white pillars, through the gate and into the churchyard of St Michael's Church here in Dumfries. It is the oldest church in the town. I'll give you a better view in just a second because we're behind where the sun is shining at the moment. We're in the shade. I will show you when we get round the other side. Bear with me here. I'm going to take you on a quick walk through the graveyard because I have never seen such large gravestones. It is a very unique place, no doubt about it. I'll tell you about the church as well. So there's been a church on this site going back about 1300 years, probably beyond. This church that's here now was built around about 200 or 300 years ago out of locally dug red sandstone. And unfortunately, again, we're getting the sun in our eyes and in the lens, but here's an example of one of those humongous gravestones. It is the oldest church in Dumfries, according to the tour books. And over in the corner is the original gravesite of Robert Burns. He was buried in this fairly normal corner of the graveyard, and you can see a sign there saying site of original grave of Robert Burns. And that's because in the early 1800s, lots of his fans and people that respected his work decided that they were going to appeal for money to move his body over towards a larger mausoleum that they would have built purposely for him. There is the mausoleum. The information I had originally was that his body was moved here in 1817, but the sign on the mausoleum itself says 1815, so I'm going to take that one as the official date. Dumfries has a population of around 50,000 people, and I'm currently on a green piece of parkland just next to the River Nith that runs through the town and essentially splits it in two. Now the water is incredibly shallow, judging by the fact that there is a fisherman walking through it this morning. It has a number of bridges crossing it, including a very modern suspension bridge that I've just walked across to get over to this side, and a much older stone bridge that I'll be walking across to get back. The river empties out at the Solway Firth, which is just south of here, and when the tide is low, it extends the river by 8 miles, which is 13 kilometres, making it the 7th longest river in the whole of Scotland. Lady Devorgilla commissioned a wooden bridge to be built across the River Nith. Back in those days, Dumfries was surrounded by bogland and water, and sometime between 1280 and 1426, the bridge was either destroyed or it got replaced with a newer stone bridge. This is the scene, a little water rapid there, and the incredible Devorgilla Bridge right in front of me. Let's go take a walk across. Right, I am walking over the oldest multi-span bridge in Scotland, purportedly. It's got these nice lamps on there. I've been down on the side of the river taking photographs for the last half an hour. It is just stunning, as you can see, especially with this weather. I can't believe how beautiful the day is. If only the rest of my trip had been like this. It has rained every day on my road trip, apart from yesterday and today. But today the sky is blue and there's power in the sun as well. I'm not sure which bridge that is, but let's cross the rest of the bridge. Apparently there is lots of wildlife, including sometimes otters, salmon, kingfisher and eels in the river. So there's plenty to look out for. That's behind me. And we're gonna, I think, head this way towards the high street again.
There's a place I have found in the shade on the ground, far from all worries and troubling sound. When I go there to be by myself, only me, no one can guess what I came there to see.
Just behind me now is a Georgian townhouse built in 1823, and it inspired J.M. Barrie to write the novel Peter Pan. James Matthew Barrie was born in 1860 and as a teenager went to school at Dumfries Academy. It was during this time and during his teenage years that he played in that Georgian house and in the gardens, and that was what inspired him to later on write Peter Pan.
There's a sun in the sky, there's a cloud drifting by, all kinds of birds make you wish you could fly, and in the distance I see someone waving at me. I hope that it's you, but who else could it be?
And that concludes my tour of Dumfries and my unbelievable, unreal, incredible road trip around the southwest of Scotland called the Southwest Coastal 300. I'm now going to put that into my bag of completed Scottish road trips alongside the North Coast 500. Thank you so much for joining me. It's been a pleasure having you along for the ride. I will sign off now on the same bridge that I signed on at a week ago, if you can believe it. So that is going to conclude the series and the road trip. Thanks again for watching. A very good afternoon from Dumfries in Scotland.
Shade on the ground, far from all worries and troubling sound. When I go there to be by myself, only me, no one can guess what I came there to see.